Man, I really loved the first episode of Channel Zero's Candle Cove. That plot sure stuck with the original material from the creepypasta. I thought to myself, wow, it's great to see Candle Cove being on the big screen with all the original story plot lines and stuff. And then I thought how amazing it was for them to continue being true to the story and not make Candle Cove scary at all. I just don't know anymore. I mean, think about No End House. That's going to be much, much better for a TV show. Can you imagine a protagonist looking through a haunted house? I mean, it's cheap and it practically writes itself, but there's a ton of source material from the original creepypasta you can use. I mean, seriously, even Channel Zero's Jeff the Killer would be better than Candle Cove. I mean, it would be funny for all the wrong reasons, but, at least then I would feel something. The most graphic, excruciating death from Candle Cove so far has been the infamous drowning scene of that fly from the opening. So for those of you who don't know, let me just spill the beans. Candle Cove is a creepypasta where 4 individuals are talking about a kids show called Candle Cove. I'm not a huge fan of Candle Cove. I think it's okay. As a creepypasta, I think it's good. Like a solid 7 out of 10 maybe. The ending strongly implies that the show that they watched never existed and that they were just watching static the entire time. I'm not really sure how to feel about it, but you can read the entire story in literally 10 minutes. So now imagine the remaining 5 episodes of Channel Zero, and imagine that each of them run for an hour each. So even if we include commercial breaks, the entire runtime for Channel Zero's Candle Cove, in terms of all 6 episodes, would be about, well, let's just say over 5 hours. And 5 hours to 10 minutes of source material is not going to be very good. So from the start, I really didn't know if I was going to like Candle Cove on the big screen. I thought maybe it could be good. I just didn't know what to think. I thought to myself that perhaps this could be good. Like, if they have it so that maybe you have a story with monsters, but then it turns out the monsters don't exist, and that the show all along is just imaginary, and that it turns out that it's something else that's, I guess, killing or kidnapping these kids. But I really don't think that's going to happen. The first thing I will say is that I am going to talk about episode 1 of Candle Cove, and if you haven't watched it, I suggest you do watch it, because I think that everyone should have their own opinion. And I'm going to try and be spoiler-free in this video. However, I'm not entirely sure if I can be. I will be talking about certain things. So let me just list off a couple of things that I thought about Candle Cove on Channel Zero. So when Candle Cove actually did appear in the episode, I thought it was actually done pretty well. So essentially, the presentation of Candle Cove is that it's a TV show. And it does appear on the TV in the middle of the episode. There's only 1 episode so far. I imagine it's going to keep reappearing as, Channel Zero keeps going forward with the remaining 6. But essentially, I thought the presentation of the Candle Cove show itself was done very well. I thought that Pirate Percy, I thought the ship looked very well. It looked like a cheap TV show. It looked like a cheap puppet show that had a low budget, and it really did kind of speak to what I imagined when I first read Candle Cove. So they got that part done very well. They also do reference the story in a couple of spots. They pretty much have the entire Candle Cove dialogue conversation from the story at some dinner table with the main character and some other people. And they do talk about it. I think they do change a few things, but for the most part, I think it kept true to the story in that sense. My only problem with this, and my only problem with the entire show in general, is I don't think this is Candle Cove. I think that this is a show that has Candle Cove in it. Like, there's something else going on. I think that they are trying to make it a monster show, where the monsters are coming from the TV show or are somehow a byproduct of the TV show. Like, the whole premise of it is that Candle Cove takes place, or it aired, rather, in 1988, and 5 kids went missing, and they all ended up dead in trees or some shit like that with their teeth missing, and then the show stopped airing, but then it started airing again, and then a kid goes missing, and then they got to find the kid. That's essentially the plot for the first episode. And I feel like it's not about Candle Cove anymore. I think it's about the real world dealing with monsters from Candle Cove. I really do think that this show in general could be kind of interesting if the main character, whose name is Mike Painter, is battling these, well, not really battling, but he's trying to rescue kids from these monsters, and he's trying to prove that it's Candle Cove's fault that these kids are missing. But then in the final episode, he gets told, like maybe from his mother even, like from the story, that Candle Cove was not real. Like, they could have done that. And they didn't do that because that's the ending of episode 1. The mother tells Mike Painter that the show is fake, which now implies that Candle Cove does not exist in the minds of most people, but that it does exist because the monsters exist, and the monsters are really kidnapping people, at least in the name of the show or as entities of the show. But now let me get into some of the problems I had with the show, and I'm going to basically list them in 3 different ways: Mike Painter, flashbacks, and Tooth Fairy. And if you don't know what the Tooth Fairy is, if you watched it, you do know who the Tooth Fairy is, but I'll get to that in a minute. So my first problem is Mike Painter, who is a completely and totally unreliable protagonist. He is a emotionless thing that walks around that is supposed to be our hero, the one that we root for, I guess, and honestly, I don't care about him. I don't care about any of these characters in the show. He's a child psychiatrist, and he sucks at talking to kids. He's terrible. He's awkward around them. There's this point in the show where the girl who goes missing, who's like his friend's daughter or something like that, you know, they have this really weird conversation where he's like, "What did you watch?" or something like that. Like, he's terrible around kids. Like, you'd think he'd be better at talking to children, but he's not better at it. And, you know, there could have been something there. Like, that scene had a lot of potential for us to get to know him as a child psychiatrist, and also for us to get to know her, the little girl that gets kidnapped. Like, maybe they have an interaction. Maybe he gets really upset when it turns out that, I think her name's Katie. I could be wrong. I'm just going to call her Katie. Maybe he gets like really upset when Katie gets kidnapped or goes missing or whatever it is. And he's like motivated to find her because they had this amazing conversation where, you know, maybe when you want to talk to a kid, it's like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite toy? What's your favorite TV show? And then she says, oh, my favorite TV show is Candle Cove. And then he finds out she's been watching Candle Cove. If you do it this way, and I'm no movie expert, but when I'm watching this episode and these characters are literally panicking over this girl, this little girl who's missing, I literally don't care because I don't know this character. I don't know who Mike Painter is, and I don't know who any of these characters are. I only know Mike Painter's name because Mike Painter is actually a reference to the story. One of the 4 usernames that is in Candle Cove, the original story, is Mike Painter 66, who's the one who is, I think, 9 years old in 1972 who watched the show. But obviously that's not the case, since he's a younger man who was a child in 1988 and watched the show with his brother Eddie, who's dead, by the way. Did I mention that? So, yeah, there's this whole thing with Mike Painter running around, and man, like, he's such an unreliable protagonist. And then there's this conversation he has in the middle of the manhunt for Katie with Katie's mother, where it's like briefly mentioned that he was in a mental institute for like 3 days and like he just got cleared. And now I'm thinking, wait, is he a psychiatrist or is he mentally insane? Like, what is this? And then they have this conversation about how Mike Painter says it's Candle Cove's fault that Katie is missing, and she just buys it. Like, why is she buying it? And it's just, I really did not like Mike Painter as a character. I think he is literally a plate with 2 sausages, or 3 sausages for 2 eyes and a mouth. Like, he's just an emotionless walking entity that doesn't make any sense. And his flashbacks ruin the mood. And speaking of flashbacks, the flashbacks completely ruin the mood of this entire thing. I understand that you need to use them to kind of get the backstory of what's going on, but when a quarter of your first episode is all flashbacks, I don't know what's going on. The opening is a flashback. The flashbacks with Eddie getting beat up by some bullies. Why couldn't that be saved for another episode? Why do I need to know that he broke his finger and that's how they started watching Candle Cove? The flashbacks at the very end when he's chasing the monster. When Mike Painter is chasing the monster and he goes to the cliffside and there's just this like array of flashbacks. Like at one point you see some child walk off the cliff and end up in the tree below. There's a part where Eddie has this thing shoved in his chest and I guess that's how he dies. There's a part where Mike Painter himself is running away. Like, I get why it's happening. Like, I understand that the flashbacks are Mike Painter's thoughts, but when you do a show and you have this episode that's an hour long, maybe 45 minutes because of the commercials, you want to establish your characters. Like I said earlier, you want your audience to care about Mike Painter enough to know about his backstory. I don't care about Mike Painter right now. You need to make me care about him. You need to make me care about this little girl who's gone missing. You need to make me care about the family. Because so far, I do not care about a single individual that I'm supposed to be rooting for in this entire show. I mean, there's no personalities. There just isn't. And with these flashbacks, that's airtime that they could have used to establish their characters. Instead of having a flashback about how Eddie broke his finger by a bunch of bullies and how they got chased by some dog, why not have it so that you use that time for character development? I just don't understand why they chose to do it this way. And yeah, it's very frustrating where a show wants you to care about somebody and you just don't care. So the flashbacks, for me at least, really ruined the first episode because I didn't care what was going on. And it was hard to follow anyway, so I wasn't going to spend more time of my life figuring out what was going on. And now let's talk about my biggest problem with this entire episode, and show for that matter, the main antagonist of Candle Cove being the goddamn Tooth Fairy. Now, if you don't know what the Tooth Fairy is, well, there he is. I'm going to put him up there. It's the main antagonist that they put on the front cover of this thing. It's that weird-looking monster with no nose or mouth that just has two little black eye holes, and he's made of teeth. Where the fuck was this in Candle Cove? Is he supposed to be Skin Taker? I don't think he is supposed to be Skin Taker. I have no idea what this thing is. So essentially, the first time we see the monster, which I'm just going to call the Tooth Fairy because I don't give a fuck what it's really called. I'm calling it the goddamn Tooth Fairy. We see the Tooth Fairy for the first time after Mike Painter rescues Katie. Katie is basically sitting under some tree. He finds her on his own, of course, because why would you bring the police with you, Mike Painter? Duh. He picks up the child and leaves. But the camera is still kind of stationary. It's kind of just sitting there for like 10 seconds, and then we see this monster kind of crawl out and pick up her two little teeth that I guess somebody must have pulled out. And I guess this monster eats the teeth? Like Ickbar Bigglestein or that other better creepypasta, to be honest. Yeah. I don't know what this thing is. I really don't, and it doesn't make any sense for the show. Because here's the reason. Here's my reasonings, at least. I'm going to assume that all of the monsters that are going to appear in this show are going to be from Candle Cove, or at least have some connection to Candle Cove. So ignoring the fact that this monster has absolutely no business being anywhere in a pirate show, where the main character and the antagonists are all kind of pirate themed, you know, that like Candle Cove, a pirate themed kids show, right? The main problem I have is that this monster is associated with Candle Cove. And his entire body, or her entire body, don't want to judge, is covered in teeth from head to toe. Literally from head to toe. And that's probably like thousands of teeth. Where the fuck did this monster get the teeth? If Candle Cove aired in 1988 and resulted in the deaths of, like, 5 children, and we assume that this monster took all of their teeth, and, like, what, the average human mouth has, like, what, 20 teeth in it? It can't be much more than 20. So if it is 20, that's like 100 teeth. If it's like 25, now you're looking at like 150 teeth. Either way, it's not enough children teeth to cover your entire body. So where did this monster get the remaining teeth? Unless it's not connected to Candle Cove and it's just a monster roaming around. Maybe it's some sort of demon. Maybe it's some sort of mythical creature that's been walking around long before Candle Cove even existed. And if that's the case, then why is it associated with Candle Cove? And if that's the case, why is it the main antagonist? It's the main antagonist of this series. It's on the cover. There's even a promo. After you watch episode 1, you could see like the coming attractions promo. There's a scene where Mike Painter gets deep-throated by the Tooth Fairy. I'm not even kidding. The Tooth Fairy takes its right arm and shoves it down Mike Painter's throat. Man, that moment when you get deep-throated by the goddamn Tooth Fairy. And I just... like, that monster makes no sense to me. And I know it's going to be a real monster. So, like, what is it? Is Candle Cove trying to feed teeth to this monster? Is that what it is? And why are they doing it? And why Candle Cove? Why is this in Candle Cove? I just don't get it. So, in conclusion... in case you couldn't tell, I wasn't a huge fan of episode 1 of this show. And I'm going to keep watching it. Why? I don't know. Because it's a creepypasta on TV. I mean, I'm not really sure what else to say. I think No End House is going to be a much, much better alternative. Because it's confirmed to be the next season of Channel Zero. They're going to use No End House. I think that's going to... whether you like No End... I like No End House, the creepypasta. Some people don't like it, and that's fine. But it's so much more visual, and it has substance. Candle Cove as a creepypasta is a bunch of forum posts, where literally 4 people talk about some show from the 1970s. There's no substance in that show. And by show, I mean that creepypasta. To make a show based on Candle Cove. But No End House... has the potential. It's long. You know, you can make an episode about a certain number of rooms, how they go from, you know, room 1 to room 9 or 10 or whatever it is, or whatever you want to do, and it leads itself to be more flexible, where you can change it up a little bit. And you can have, it could be scary. I don't think Candle Cove is scary. I understand why people like the creepypasta Candle Cove. I really do. I think I'm kind of on the fence with it. I'm kind of just think it's, like, good. It's not great, though. But, look, that's my opinion. This is a new thing I'm going to try and do on a weekly basis. I think I'm going to call it Flea's TV, and this is the first episode of it. I hope you enjoyed it. This is my way of trying to give you guys more content on a more weekly basis. The next episode of Flea's TV will probably be episode 2 of Channel Zero's Candle Cove. Will it be good? After watching the first one, I don't think it can be. They've already used all the references from the original Candle Cove, including the ending, in episode 1. So what's left for the remaining 5? I don't think this is going to be very good. And I think it's just going to be kind of boring. Like I said earlier, I think even a Jeff the Killer on TV would be more entertaining. At least it'd be entertaining seeing a bunch of 12-year-olds beat up some 13-year-old. And to, like, angsty teen music. That would be funny. I would feel something. Joy.